Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for coming out this evening. It's wonderful to see you here. I'm Greg Kenny. If you don't already know me, I'm the education coordinator here at the museum, and it's my honor and my privilege to get to kind of arrange these programs and put them together. I really hope you enjoy the one this evening. I really think you will. Of course, you know we have Denise Goolsby here with us, and you know her, of course, from the Desert Sun and all these fantastic stories on the World War II veterans that she's been writing. Well, you didn't come here tonight to see me. You came here to see Denise, and of course she's here. You see her right over there. I'm going to get out of the way. I know we were expecting Rick Green this evening, but as so often can happen with people in journalism and reporters, he's been called away. I understand he's in Salt Lake City this evening, so we won't be able to hear from him tonight, but I think Denise has got plenty of good stuff to tell us. So Denise, come on up here and tell us about that series you've been doing for so long now.
First of all, thank you so much to the Palm Springs Air Museum for inviting me to speak tonight. I'm really honored, and I just want to say a big special thank you to Dick Clark, Bob Andrade, Dr. David Thompson, Greg Kenny, and Ann Greer. You guys have been just invaluable sources of information for this World War II Heroes project. In fact, you guys have really helped make my life very much easier because of this. I can pick up the phone and go, hey, I need a Buffalo Soldier. Know anybody? Dr. Thompson, it's me, Mr. George Edwards, that's right. And Bob Andrade, I was looking for somebody that had anything to do with the Salt Sea and the bombing and the practice bomb runs for the B-29s, and I called Bob, and he has a man for me to talk to right away. So it's really exciting for me to have the opportunity to be over here and visit the library and talk to these people, and the fact that we're just across the street is really amazing. And I can't wait until I get a little free time so I can get up in your library and learn more, because it's just, you guys are, it's just a treasure, a jewel here, and I really appreciate everything you've done for me. Thank you so much. I just want to talk a little bit about how this series got started. If some of you have already heard this before, I apologize. I just want to kind of give you a little background. A little over 2 years ago, our reporter, Brian Andrelunas, was talking to a World War II veteran, a Pearl Harbor survivor, in fact, named Don Jones. And he said, you know, we make a lot of Pearl Harbor Day, as we should, and D-Day, but how come nobody ever celebrates the end of World War II, which the Air Museum is doing fabulously this year. And so Rick Green had an idea. Our executive editor said, you know what, maybe we should commemorate this. It's 65th anniversary, let's do something different. So he says, let's put a fetch, a little thing in the paper that says, if you've served in World War II, give me a call, email, and we'll write about you. We're going to do this 13-month project. Oh my gosh. The first day, my mailbox was full. I think it was 56 messages. I had about 70 emails, and you know what? It's just been going on and on since then. Since we launched this project, we've put out 4 special sections. We put out the November 11th section last year to kick it off. We put out our Allies section featuring Canadian and Britain World War II heroes. And we had a section about D-Day, and we also had a section about the war in the Pacific. And our final one for this year is going to be a December 7th tribute to the anniversary of Pearl Harbor Day. Since that time, we've also profiled almost 300 veterans have appeared in our series, which is just amazing. We had no idea that there were so many World War II veterans out here in the valley. I guess I should have just come across the street and asked, we would have known. So the response has been overwhelming. My executive editor, Rick Green, has been really gracious and this doesn't happen in newspaper. They don't usually take one person and say, you go out and do this project for a year or 13 months. So for me to be dedicated to this is just great, and I can give it 100%, and I can really learn more about history. Which brings me to the fact that I guess I didn't know much about history until I started this project. I consider myself kind of well versed in World War II, but they really don't teach you much in high school or college when it comes to the war. I've realized now. They talk about the war in the Pacific, they talk about the war in Europe, but it's the individual experiences of these men in the fighting hand-to-hand combat in these little islands that I can barely, pronounce, in the South Pacific and in the Aleutian Islands, in the Coral Sea, the Java Sea. I had no idea what that was. So it's really helped my geography, and my love of history has really been stoked, and it's been a pleasure. It's a front row seat every day to history with these great guys and some women. I'm trying to get more women, so if you know of any World War II vets, let me know. On a sadder side, 6 of the veterans that I've profiled since last November have since passed away. which also talks to the urgency of what we're doing in preserving the stories. And I'm not talking, I'm talking, speaking to the choir, because I guess you guys all know the importance of that. And I guess newspapers, or our newspapers, finally getting around to getting that idea. And I've had some calls for some of our other Gannett papers and other papers across the country saying, what do we do to start our own program like this? Because we have many, many veterans here. We need to preserve it. And you guys are the greatest generation. Tom Brokaw was absolutely right. I mean, it's incredible. I just have so much respect for all your sacrifices that you've done for your country. Also, on another sad note, not trying to bring it down, but there's been 70 obituaries in the Desert Sun, the paid obituaries only, of World War II veterans that have passed away since we started this. So there's no telling how many more have passed away since then. And there's just such a vital part of history. We want to just remember it and hold on to it and embrace it as long as we can. Rick has given us the okay to at least profile one World War II veteran once a week starting in 2011. So the series won't stop, thankfully. So hopefully we can get to many more men and women before 2011's up. Let me just talk a little bit about our 300th veteran that's going to be profiled on Saturday. Actually, I just met this gentleman today. His name's Don Satterin, and he's an 89-year-old Indio resident, and he flew F-4F Navy fighter planes in World War II. He had 100 carrier landings between the escort carriers USS Corregidor and USS Macon Island. He was trained on a carrier in Lake Michigan, and I just find some of these things just fascinating as far as the training that went on. So they got a carrier at Lake Michigan in the winter, and he had made 6 successful takeoffs and landings, but they're all day-type flights. He did those fine, shipped out overseas, and one time he was on a mission, and he was returning at night and running really low on fuel, and he told me, that was a little scary. I'd never done it before. I'd never practiced at all. We were out in the Pacific. I went to the wrong ship, and they waved me off. So here's this guy low on fuel, never practiced a night landing. Oh my gosh, I was stressing when he was telling me. He finally found the right ship, and he saw a signalman that was illuminated right there on the deck, kind of giving him the signals on wings up, wings down. As he approached, he was given the signal, I guess, to cut the engine. And this is what Don said. He said, you're not supposed to move the stick forward when you cut the engine. I moved it forward and back. I hit the deck real hard and bounced. The pilot's radio room was under the deck. They said the lights went out for a second. I caught the number 9 wire, and the prop just touched the barrier where it stopped. And I guess the 9 wire is the last wire till you go off. Well, it was in the days before the carriers, I guess, went at different angles, so the planes were safe. Well, the planes were just like a thin cable on the other side of the propeller where it stopped. So he was pretty fortunate, pretty good for his first landing at night. On his return, on another return flight, his engine died, and he landed upside down in his plane in the water. His harness with his parachute, and I guess they have like a little life raft attached to it that's inflatable. It caught on something, so he's upside down in the cockpit, and his harness he's hung up. So he's struggling to get out, and then you'll just have to read Saturday's story in the Desert Sun for the rest of the story. So. With that, I'd like to show about a 7-minute video that talks a little bit about why we just said the Desert Sun decided to take on this project and what we intend to do to keep trying to preserve history from our side of the street over there. So, and maybe we'll take questions afterwards. So, thank you.
My name is Denise Goolsby. I'm a reporter with the Desert Sun newspaper, and I've been working on the World War II Heroes Veteran Series for the past couple of months. And what we're doing is we're trying to capture the history of some of the veterans that live across the valley, talk to them about their time and their experiences in the war.
It was really, a total accident how this thing took place. We had a reporter who came in and told us of a local man who was in Hawaii from the beginning of the war in 1941 and was also in Tokyo Bay for the surrender of the Japanese on September 2nd, 1945. And he had seen the beginning and the ending of the war. And he said, everybody knows when the war began in Pearl Harbor, and everybody is very familiar with what happened on D-Day, June 6, 1944, at the beaches of Normandy, but nobody really commemorates the end of the war.
Many of the men are aging, and some of these stories are eventually going to be lost. The youngest men that I've interviewed are 82, and the oldest gentleman is 98. And so their stories, they're not going to be here forever. And once they die, the stories are gone. We didn't realize there were so many veterans that were living here in the Coachella Valley. And it was a snowball effect. I interviewed the first person and got this incredible story, and then we tell the story. Actually, we told it in with 8 stories with our Veteran Series. After the Veterans Day special came out, I got phone calls left and right. I had 50 phone calls on my recorder the first day after that with families, friends, and World War II veterans saying, hey, maybe I can tell my story too.
Where would we be if they hadn't gone and fought for our country? Both in the South Pacific and in Europe. It's a scary thought to think where we might be without those people.
It's not fun. You can't say it's fun, but it's certainly a lot of things that you try to remember. But you don't, believe it or not, you don't remember most of it. I don't remember a lot of the things.
I think some of the stories kind of help explain more to people who weren't there how difficult it was and how much we have to appreciate our freedoms and thank these veterans for what they've accomplished.
They gave their lives. I mean, they put everything out on the line for our country. My dad lost a lung and 8 ribs, and he's classified 100% disabled. He's worked every day of his life.
This was a piece of our history. This is something that defined an important segment of our population and in our community here in the Coachella Valley. I want people to remember those stories. I want people to remember the experiences of those people who put their lives on the line for our country.
I said to these 2 guys with me, you know, you get behind me. And they loaded their rifles up with, you know, a charge and whatnot, and they came out with me to so far, and then they laid down and were watching me. And if I gave them a signal that I needed help, you bet they would help.
They have incredible memories. That's one of the things that's amazing. I mean, they can just remember their buddy's name in the foxhole, you know, 65 years ago, and they just have remarkable memories. And it seems like they're very eager to tell their stories once that, you know, the door is open and they're able to just kind of walk through there and be able to feel free to talk.
We didn't sleep a lot either, by the way, but you go to sleep when it's too dark to drive, and you wake up the moment it's light enough to drive, and just grab something for a meal and you keep going.
It's nothing like we could even imagine, because in the history books in school, only a minimal amount of time we had to study World War II in college or high school. And it's really just an overview of the war. But these guys were there, they were storming the beaches in D-Day. They were going down with the ship in the Coral Sea. They were fighting the Japanese hand-to-hand combat in the Philippine Islands. And just hearing what those guys experienced and go through makes you have a much better appreciation for the world we live in now.
To actually read the story of an 87-year-old man who was part of the Marine Corps that leapfrogged from one Pacific island to another, and some of the bloodiest, most violent fighting against the Japanese, who survived and was able to tell stories that he had never told his own children. And that morning, my children are able to read that story, and they were able to say, so that's what this was about. That's what they were fighting for. That's what they experienced. It makes it all come alive in a way that Saving Private Ryan or reading a book or any kind of a video just can't match the real life experiences and reminiscences and memories of these veterans.
My wife is always kidding me about it when she's talking to somebody else. She says, him, he won the war. See, and that's, now I know that she's just kidding around, you know, but by the same, you know what? I and 12 million other guys won the war. And we did it right, and we knocked them out.
And I get phone calls all the time, emails all the time. People love the series. And they're just so happy that the Desert Sun is dedicating that much time and space in our paper to tell the stories.
Folks have been really surprised that a relatively small, mid-sized community newspaper and website has decided to pursue something so ambitious as this. So there's been a little bit of surprise that we're taking on something that is this ambitious.
I told family members on Facebook that this was coming about. And they went online and read it, and they've been reading, a bunch of people have been reading every one that's come online.
I'll bet you that without exaggeration that somewhere between 20 and 30 different people came to me and said, hey, I saw your picture in the paper. No, I'm not just having my picture in the paper. I don't want my picture in the paper for most things. I just, you know, and they were saying, you know, showing me they had cut out.
People see me on the street and stuff, and they say, oh, do you do the veteran stories? We really love that. We really love what the Desert Sun's doing. We didn't realize there's so much history here, but it's really, the community has really embraced this project. It's overwhelming, but it's great. We're doing a good service for our community.
We've been blown away by the response. Literally hundreds of phone calls almost immediately after we published the little promotion saying this is what we plan to do. I wrote a column about it. I told everybody about the need to preserve these memories and experiences of World War II.
And that's what I think is one of the most important things, is to preserve the history for our future generations, because I don't think a lot of kids in school really are getting what sacrifices were made. And I've heard some really nice, got some phone calls from some folks that they don't even have family members that, you know, that are living or anything that are World War II veterans, but they're cutting out the articles and they're sending them to their grandkids. And one guy told me that his 12-year-old grandson, he's like, this is what he wants to do. He's just fallen in love with World War II history, and it's just a little bit of nudge. You just got to, you know, expose people to it. Like I was exposed to the Air Museum. I mean, I'm just so hooked on it now. But I think we just have to reach out more to the community and the younger people, especially in the high schools and maybe, you know, even younger. As it sits now, we're in the talks of perhaps doing a book. And so, you know, Rick would like to get into all the schools here in the Valley, which I think would be kind of cool, kind of a neat tribute to our World War II veterans. I'm not a woman of a lot of words, but I'm wondering, do you guys have any questions? Nope. Oh, there you go.
All right, if we can just beg your indulgence for a minute. I've got the microphone. If you've got a question, Denise will call on you, and then I'll give you the mic.
I've got one big comment, and that is that from the very beginning of your articles, that you use the privilege so much, so important. There are acronyms in there that are strictly for Marine or whatever, and when you did that, when the person would use an acronym or there were initials, whatever, you would in parentheses, you would put out what it meant. That means a lot to these people, you know. It puts us right into it, and we really commend you for that. Okay?
Well, thank you very much. I've learned about caliber versus millimeter guns, and just all the different, there's just so many different, oh, I know what I got. I got an email. It's sort of nasty, but not too much. He goes, I just want to tell you, I like your series, but Navy and Marine goes to boot camp. Air Force and Army goes to basic training. I have that, and I swear it's sitting on my desk, or on my little thing pinned up on the wall. So people are always calling me and saying, hey, so I really have to be careful because, you know, it means a lot and it's technical, but it needs to be right, and that's what we're trying to get. But it's been really, really fun learning about everything.
How far has your storyline gone in relation to the other newspapers in the chain? Has anybody else picked this up and are running with the same ball that you started?
Not that I know of, unfortunately. I think what we're going to do is try and put a proposal together. Our CEO and our CEO of Gannett actually came and visited us in September, and they're open to some new suggestions, and they're really, really thrilled with the series. The top people at Gannett, the corporation that is our parent paper, our parent corporation. And so Rick and I think are going to put something together and see if we can get other papers to sign on to do something like that. But that would be a great idea. I mean, it could be, you know, magnified. How many? We have 82 newspapers. And countrywide, absolutely.
You mentioned that you might publish a book of all of these stories that you've written. Do you know when that might happen, and will it include every person you have interviewed?
I hope it happens really soon. And yes, we want to include everybody. That's the idea. I don't know if we're going to have to do 2 volumes, because if we keep going next year, then we're going to have to we have to cut it at some point, and then we may have to just add into it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know yet. I'm thinking maybe spring, but I'm not sure. It has to go to corporate first to get the sign off, but we want to include everybody.
I just want to make a comment following up on the book idea, which I really applaud. It's a great idea. I'm a docent here at the museum, and your series has been a tremendous source of information for us, because everyone here is interested in some kind of airplane or some battle somewhere or some unit. And if you go through the process of making a book, I suggest you have a historian or someone do a database that pulls together all of those elements, so historians that are looking at any one particular item, like a battle or a piece of equipment, could then pull these stories together, because there's background like no other.
Well, thank you. Wow, that's a great idea. And I want to have somebody go through a historian again and just fact check and make sure we've got everything correct. Because early on, I kind of had, like I said, troubles with the caliber and millimeter and company versus squadron and stuff. So, but that's a great idea. I think it'd be a good, pretty soon, I don't know, the window is closing for us to get the stories. And you're right, maybe historians in the future will be able to use that material. Thank you. I'll put that up to Rick.
I would hope that this series be disseminated to high schools, because, as you say, the World War II is not being taught, and perhaps this is a vehicle by which young people can learn something about World War II and those who served.
I agree 100%. We'd love to get one of the books into every school in the Valley, and so that's kind of our goal to, and I'm going around and start talking at the schools and talking to the different classes, and hopefully maybe just kind of get them, a little bit up and running on some of these stories that are more intimate than just here's a battle, there's a battle. These are the men that really sacrificed their lives. So yes, thanks. We're gonna work on that.
Denise.
Hey, Bill.
How you doing? Thank you for being here. But the gentleman is asking about the students.
Yes.
Well, we have a program in place. Hey, how you doing? That buses the students in, and there's a gentleman, one of our board members, pays for the buses. He put up a fund to pay for the buses, the school buses, and we bus the children here. And in the far hangar, in the Army hangar, there's a student area where the students learn all about aircraft flying, and then I take them upstairs to the library, and this guy here lectures to them. So we are doing quite a bit and have been for a long time.
No, I totally know that. We need to follow your guys' lead, that's for sure.
You put on a great presentation in the paper and tonight, so appreciate that.
Thanks, John.
One question. The women were very important in our home front and even in the combat lines in the medical corps and so on. Could you do a series on that too? Because all honor to their contribution.
That's a great idea. I'd love to keep going on this series. On the home front, I'd like to do a whole thing on that. And we've only had about, I think 6 or 7 women come forward for our series. One of them was 100 years old. I think we did a couple months ago, who was an Army nurse. And I'd love to do more. Talk to Mike, or you guys call, cards, letters, just put some influence on it. We want to, the paper wants to give the community what they want to read. It's not about what, it's not so structured. It's more fluid now. So hopefully maybe we can do some more of those projects. But John, email Rick.
Will these stories become part of the National Archives in D.C.?
That's a good question. Somebody from the Daughters of the American Revolution contacted me and said we should put these in, but I'm sure I can talk to the Air Museum folks and probably help me do something like that when we get it together. That's a good idea. Thank you.
I've got a question of my own, Denise.
Okay.
I mean, I bet some of these stories that people share with you could be an entire newspaper full, if not an entire book, one in their own. How do you pick which parts of the stories you're going to share? That's got to be hard, right?
It's hard, especially some of these. The Saturday story is going to be really tough to. I haven't written it yet, but I've just interviewed him today. But I try and get a feel. When I talk to him, it's more like just a conversation, and I just kind of listen to it. First of all, I'm going to put the juiciest stuff in there for sure, unless the editors cut it out, and sometimes they do. But I try to get away with what I can. I can tell kind of by talking to them and then doing this so often what's really important to them, what they really want to see in the paper. If they mentioned it 2 or 3 times, I make sure I get that part in. It might not really have anything to do with the whole overall story, but it's important to them. I think through experience, I've kind of just been able to, it's easier for me to write the stories now than it was back in November, December, January, February, March, because I really didn't know about all the technical stuff. So it took me 5 hours sometimes to write a story because I had to fact check, was this ship where it was supposed to be? Is this how you spell it? So right now I could be more thoughtful about, I've always been thoughtful about writing, but I can really take some extra time and really try and encapsulate what they're trying to say. But it's a challenge, especially for some of these stories that are they're just never ending. It's just, I wish I could do a book on some of these guys.
Just to tell you a little bit about, to pick up what he was talking about. A few years ago, we had some students come from Cathedral City High School, and we had about 12 World War II veterans around their planes and stuff, and they spent all day and interviewed each of these guys, and then they made a nice DVD. So we're thinking that, I believe, if I'm correct, that in their junior year in high school, that's when they have American history. So we're thinking next spring, when they get around to World War II, for a couple weeks, perhaps we'll see if we can get the classes to come over, one class at a time. Denise can help us also maybe pick out some of the good ones that we haven't already done here, and have them interview them. And then they can write up something or do something for their class. So we are going to do that, and I think it's important that we do that.
That's great. That's a great, any way I can help, let me know.
On my way over, have you found any common thread that runs through your interviewees? Is there any one statement that you could say applies to most or all?
All these veterans are very humble. They don't think what they did was anything special, and they did so many special things. I mean, sometimes I just want to cry just hearing what they do, but they're like, I'm not a hero, I didn't do anything, and it's like, oh yes, you did. And so I think that's probably the main thing I get, that these guys are just really humble, and they just I just did it because, that's what I had to do, and, there's no question I was going to, fight for my country, and most of them, some were drafted, but a lot of them are like, this is what we have to do. We're here. We're going to rally around and fight and give it everything we have. And that's pretty much it. They're humble, very humble.
Denise, as representing one of the allies, I'd just like to express my appreciation, hello there, for your inclusion, the Desert Sun's inclusion of the allies, Canadian, Brits, Australians, etc., and of course for Alan Burnett and Major John Calaro. Are you open to including allies as well as American vets?
Oh, in the
if
series?
they come to your attention?
Oh yeah, actually I did. Who did I do recently? I did it wasn't super recently, but it was a woman that was in the the Royal Air Force. I mean, she didn't fly, but she was in it. But yeah, I mean, I'll do them we did the special section, but if they come to me, I'm happy to do it. I want more allies.
I'll refer. Just out of sadness, but a little humorous, the oldest RAF veteran recently passed away. He was 113. And shortly after that, another RAF vet passed away. He was 111. So wow. 89 years old, they're youngsters.
That's right. That's true.
Denise, I've been reading your column with great interest, but I've noticed something that was missing that had a great effect on the Pacific War, but it hasn't been covered that I know of, and that's the submarine guys. They did a hell of a job.
I only had one submarine guy so far. If you know anybody, let me know. Just one gentleman so far.
Fritz Young here is a volunteer.
Okay, great. And if any of you guys haven't been interviewed, let me know. I mean, I want to try and get to everybody as many as I can, but that's a great idea. I'd love to hear and learn about those stories myself because I know little about it, so. He's getting his exercise up. Go ahead, Bob.
We just thought of something right here. We do have a docent. We do have a docent here. His name is Fritz Young, the submariner, and he has quite a story because when the war ended, he was in a group that were supposed to take these Japanese submarines with hangars on them. They had aircraft carrier submarines, and that's quite a story when you look into it. You know, it tells about how they, of course, how they took them from Japan, and they eventually scuttled them. And so so we will get him to you, okay?
Excellent. That would be
and
great.
also, just one last thing is one thing when you talk about when you get to a story, and I envy you because I do this, okay? Copy fitting. That's a big word with us. Is copy fitting. You have so much space and you got to get all that stuff into so many lines. And I don't know how you do it.
Well, you know what? I keep squeezing a little more. It was started out, it was supposed to be 15 inches, which is, I don't know how long that, I'm not that big. Then we went to 20, and my editor's like, you really need to keep it, below 20. Then I went out to 23, 25. Then you keep it lower. Now I just get away with 30 inches. So they give me the half a page now. So I just take as much as I can get. So, but it is difficult to keep it all in one place. It's
Above the fold.
Pardon me?
Above the fold.
Above the fold, exactly. You know.
It's great.
And I've learned, and I didn't realize this, and I think more people know. I didn't realize the Coast Guard and the Merchant Marines. I didn't realize what a large role they played in the war. And the guys are really happy when they read about that in the paper. They're like, we need more Merchant Marines, and then they start. Once some guys see it, then they kind of go, yeah, all right, I can tell my story now too. So it's bringing people together. Also, I get calls all the time. Oh man, you just interviewed me, and I've had some guys call that I haven't heard from in years, and it's bringing people together too. So it's kind of cool. Calls from across the country. It's very, very, very rewarding.
Seeing Bob Hope behind you, I was wanting to know if you had interviewed any of the entertainers of the era.
No, I haven't. I've written about them, but I haven't interviewed them. Do you know of any? No. That would be very interesting, though.
Thank you. I'd like to stand because I can. To all the older guys, I'm your son. So, coming here 3 years ago, she came in and interviewed one of the gentlemen in the B-17 hangar, who has since passed away.
Oh. Yeah.
So it was one of those. I saw it, read it, and I clip all this stuff, by the way. I got you guys and everything. More of the personal history is what I look at, because if you see all this, and it's got, okay, the guy up front, the guy in the back. Calling the editor will probably get her a couple more lines.
There you go.
Call Ron, say, hey, give her a couple more columns down at the bottom. Get over the fold.
Thanks.
I've enjoyed it, and for all the veterans, thank you.
Thank you.
I noticed during the video piece that it may have been Rick that made the comment that a lot of these veterans will tell you stories that they won't even tell their families. I guess I'm asking you to play psychologist or something maybe, but you account for that.
You know what? I think people feel comfortable with me. I think maybe I'm familiar. And when I approach an interview, and I talked to the Palm Springs branch of the National Pen Women of America, I think that's the name of it, yesterday. And they asked me, how do you do the interview? How does that go? And I come in and I invite, if a wife's there or the children are there or anybody, just kind of invite them in. It's like a conversation. And the men have gotten more verbal, and I think more verbal with their feelings when they've seen another guy's run. So the more we get, it's kind of a snowball effect. I think when they see that other guys have stepped up and talked about some of their, their pain and some of the things they went through, they're able to open up as well. And I guess it's kind of like you play therapist. I'm a good listener, So all you do is say, hey, were you, I started off with, did you enlist, or you, were you drafted, and what were you doing? Were you working or going to school at the time? And it's a conversation, and then one thing leads to another, and sometimes they'll be silent for a minute, you wait, and I don't throw another question in there, I let them kind of think about it, and sometimes that's when the stuff comes out, when it's quiet and they're really thinking, and sometimes they're like the most stirring memories and just really kind of chilling, and the wife or a child will say, we've never heard that before. And I just think giving them space and making a comfortable environment for them to talk, I think helps them open up. I mean, that's all I can think of, is just because we're just having a conversation like sitting in your living room.
Along the same line, I find out when I tell my story, I think of something new that happened that I didn't even think of before.
Exactly right. It's exactly what one thing leads to another, and they'll sometimes say, you know what, I haven't even thought about that in 65 years, or God, I can't believe I remember that, and they're just amazed, and then they'll call me later, hey, I thought of something else, which I encourage. You think of something else, give me a call, and we'll add it, so.
Would you ever want to satellite any of your stories that have been done here in the Air Museum?
Satellite?
Take some of the stories. I know Dave's probably done a number of women and have those stories.
Oh, yeah, you mean share the stories? Yeah, of course. We're a team. I swear, I'm so much further along than I would be if it wasn't for Bob and these guys. I mean, I'm telling you, it's just a blessing that we're across the street, and they've been so helpful.
Considering their World War II stories, how much before, like Pearl Harbor, are you covering people it would have covered, and how much of the, for instance, rebuilding that was done in Germany and Japan? Fellows that joined a little later, are you covering those too?
You know what? We haven't yet, and some of the guys I called, they said, well, we got in 1946 or the end of 45, and they go, well, we don't really want to do the other guys first. I would like to continue it. And when we did the Allied Special Section, that's when we talked about when Hitler invaded Poland, and we started back in 39 and moved forward. And a guy I think I'm doing for tomorrow was involved in he enlisted before 41. But I would love to go in it. Just call my editor. I would like to spend the rest of my career on this. Are you kidding? So that's a great idea. We haven't done any of that, but I would like to. Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating. I don't know much about it, so it'd be a good learning experience.
Denise, somebody here mentioned celebrities, Bob Hope, and Bob Hope's up there. Well, one day I was in the front lobby. I just happened to be there, and here comes Dolores and Bob driving up, and she helped Bob out of the car, and he was very shaky. He wasn't too well. So I went and we keep wheelchairs up front, just in case. So I got him in a wheelchair, brought him around here, showed him all of the things. We got to talk a little bit. And the funny part of the whole thing is, maybe I shouldn't say this, but he was looking around at all the exhibits and the planes and really enjoying it. And all of a sudden he said, he's sitting in the wheelchair and he says, I gotta pee. So I had to escort him to the men's room, and I just held his hand.
That's a good story. Yes.
Denise, I assume you've done other things besides this series that you're doing right now. Can you give us a background on yourself? Just tell us all about yourself.
Oh, okay. In 3 minutes, I can do that. Yeah. Let's see. I came to the Desert Sun. Been there about 7.5 years. When I first started working for the paper, I worked on the editorial page, writing editorials. Then I worked on the business desk as a business reporter, and I've had a lot of great opportunities. That's that's cool about my job. And then I went to cover Indio and the East Valley, Indio, La Quinta, in that area. Then I did breaking news as a breaking news reporter for a year, so I did the 6 o'clock to 2 o'clock shift, the cops and robbers type, which I really liked. That was exciting. And then I was going to switch over to be a general assignment reporter. That was last August, I guess. And then this project came along. And so that's what I've been doing ever since. But I've had a really varied, and I love it. I've been out here about 14, 15 years now, so I've really enjoyed just working in the community in any aspect.
But how did you get into journalism to begin with?
Oh boy, let's see. All right, let's see, let's go back. Okay, well, I'm not a journalism major. I graduated from Cal State Fullerton. I was going to teach and coach and, you know, be an athletic trainer. And I love coaching, but I was a good student and I liked learning, but it seemed like some of the kids didn't want to learn. So I'm like, I don't know, I was kind of leery of it. So I didn't do that. So I did something else. My family had they saw the electronics test lab. They do a lot of testing and manufacturing for Boeing and DR.DAVE, Hughes Aircraft. I did that for 11 years. Met a partner, came out here, got a hotel, small hotel, fixer-upper, early 90s. I worked 4 days a week there, 3 days a week here, drive back and forth to Irwindale, back and forth, back and forth. My partner was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in May of 1996. She died in October of 96. I moved out here full-time, ran the hotel for 7 years. I got really involved in the community. I was a president of the hotel, Palm Springs Hotel Association, president of the Palm Springs Police Department Advisory Committee, Human Rights Commission, Chamber of Commerce. And, you know, I couldn't say no. I had a manager at the hotel, and I just thought it was I should get out and do things and give back to the community. In 2002 or 3, I was asked to be on the editorial board of the Desert Sun as a community member. After I sold the hotel in 2002, they invited me to work at the paper, and they said, we know you like to write, we're going to do an experiment with you. We're going to take a non-journalist that has lots of ties to the community and lots of connections and teach you how to be a journalist. And so that's what they did with me. And so I've had a really kind of a unique career. So that's, aren't you sorry you asked?
Thank you.
That's kind of in a nutshell, so.
I'm so glad you do those series. That's wonderfully interesting. Can you tell me when you interview the veterans, do you have a tape that you can remember, or do you shorthand it, or do you write down, or are you just smart enough to remember everything they tell you?
I wish I could remember everything. I don't use a tape recorder. I tried to use it once. The only time I've used a tape recorder probably in the last few years is when, I don't know if you watch Project Runway. I never did before, but there's this guy named Tim Gunn. I guess he's some big guy on the show. I interviewed him. I had 10 minutes about a month ago. And so I brought it and I taped it. But if I tape these 2.5, 3, 4 hour interviews, I will never get them written. It's just, it will take me so long to listen to them. So I tried it once, nope. I can write really fast now. And I can almost write everything down they're saying. I don't know, it's just sort of, and then I remember and I go and write it the next day or a day after, so I still have the feeling. So it's kind of a combination of the memory, but mostly I just write it.
Oh, thank you. I was wondering, you interviewed them for 4 hours to get that half a page?
Well, I've interviewed sometimes, well, it started out, I wasn't exactly sure how to approach it. Now I kind of have more of a rhythm on how to do it, but some of the guys took a little longer to think about. Some are in ill health, and they're a little slower, or they want to tell me this really long story, and I'm kind of more able to focus people now. But the guy I talked to, and I can't remember his name now, but he was on the Bataan Death March, and after 3 hours, we still hadn't got to the march part. So I'm like, one more hour. So it was, sometimes I get a little tired, but I'm trying to keep him about an hour and a half now, so.
Well, I really appreciate your series. I think it's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I think we've got time for one more question. Does that work okay for you, Denise?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I love questions.
Your series has been so well received. I'm just thinking tonight, is there a chance that perhaps you'll consider doing Korean and Vietnam vets as well? Because I can imagine, I'm in the Vietnam War generation, and I can imagine there would be many men who would like to talk about that war who were not well received at all when they returned from there. And I bet it would open up a huge floodgate of emotions on the parts of people in my generation.
You're absolutely right about that. I've already broached that. I already put it out there. What about Korea, and what about Vietnam? As a matter of fact, 2 gentlemen came by to visit me. They just stopped by, and I come downstairs, and Vietnam vets, and it was about a month ago, and they said, you know, we need a place. We've been in this organization, it's like 6 years, I guess, for PTSD, and they're going to a meeting, and they have a counselor there from the county, and this. They said, we need to do something bigger. And as it turned out, and it was really nice to sit down and talk to them and hear their stories. As it turned out, one of our reporters, Monica Torline, was writing a story about PTSD. So she interviewed them, and we were doing a story for Veterans Day, and Brian Andrew Loomis interviewed them. And so I think we're opening up more of a dialogue and kind of connecting with all the veterans now, and I think it would be a great service to do that. Again, put in a plug for me, my editor, my own personal editor, Lorraine Whetstone, she wants me back on the hard news beat, but you know, put in a good word saying, hey, just at least once a week. But I would love to do that. It might not be me, but I would love to do that. And I've already put it out there to Rick, so good idea.
Well, I kind of began the evening by thanking quite a few folks, our members, our sponsors. I think it's appropriate to end it by thanking one special person, and that's you, Denise. Thank you for what you've done for our community. Thank you for this evening.